Hey guys, welcome back to Zane Customs. In this episode I'll be sculpting the spider from Minecraft. So, like normal, I started the sculpt off on my iPad in an app called Forger. And here I'm just working on the butt and the main body, and like you see there, I just pulled out a sphere for the main body and the head, and then I'll go into the main body and I'll start to pull out some legs. And I'm actually going through this process fairly quickly because I actually sculpted this spider, not to completion, but put a couple hours into it, but lost the video, and I didn't want to have the video start off with the spider half sculpted, so I went ahead and deleted it and then started over. So I already knew how I was gonna get from point A to point B to make it look like a spider. So in this video, it's actually the second time I'm sculpting it, and I'm going through it a lot quicker. So the hardest part about doing this sculpt was doing the actual base mesh, and specifically the legs. If you look at the head and the body, they're just basically balls that are squished and warped here and there, but they're basically just round shapes. And then the butt is the same. It's just it's pretty blocky to keep with the Minecraft aesthetic, but still it's pretty a simple shape. The legs are a lot harder because, as you saw, I had to pull them out of the actual body themselves, so they just became long, like strings coming out of the body. So then I have to go in and remesh, because when you pull them out, it gives you weird geometries and weird vertexes and such. So that was the hardest part at first, but once I pulled it out and got the base mesh looking how I wanted to, then I can just remesh it to fix all the polygons and just go back and forth until I got something I was happy with. So at this point I got them roughed out pretty good, and going back to some reference images of the actual Minecraft spider, I got it basically the same as that. I mean, the Minecraft spider is all blocky, so obviously there's not a lot of detail, but the only thing I could really take from the original source material was that it's a black spider with 2 fangs and 8 red eyes, and I added all that, and then from there I just had to decide what extra details I wanted, because again, I'm doing realistic variants of the Minecraft creatures. So I looked at a lot of reference material for actual spiders and tarantulas online, but some of it I just kind of made up and did what I thought looked good. So again, if you look at this spider, you might not be able to tell right off the bat that it's supposed to be the Minecraft spider. But once it gets painted up with and it's all black with the red eyes, I think it looks pretty good. So once I got to this point of just adding in a lot of random details, I decided to try and give the spider's underbelly a fleshy, soft look, and the top of him and the top of his legs to have more of an armored look. And I got this idea from looking at tarantulas in specific. I don't know if all spiders have this, but tarantulas have what looks like armor, or like a carapace, kind of like a crab or a lobster or something like that. And they have it going across the top of their bodies sometimes. And you know, I don't think all tarantulas do, but some of the reference images I looked up had that, so I decided to go for that. And even the whole top of his body isn't fully armored. Like if you look at his butt, it's only like the top edges, and then it kind of fades into more of a soft, fleshy look on the sides and even in the middle of his butt. But I just tried to blend it in here and there to make it look, again, more like a real spider, something that if you saw in real life you would think maybe it was real, you know. Obviously it's fantastical, but more realistic than a Minecraft spider. And then I also tried to add a sort of a lip to the edge of where his armor or carapace would end. Have it go up a little bit, like where his neck ends to the top of his back, they would kind of go up, and then in between there you would see the more fleshy skin folds going on in between to sell the idea of it being armor more. Alright, and then here is where I push it over to Zbrush, and you can see there on the back leg, I had a lot of weird geometry going on, and that's the benefit of Zbrush. It has a lot more processing power, so I can fix up all that and go in and kind of, what I usually do when I first put it into Zbrush is Dynamesh it, which is like pretty much like what Forger has in a remesh, but Dynamesh is a lot more powerful and you can do a lot more with. But I'll do that and then go in and redefine a lot of the details, and then once I get that done, I go in and add all the new details that I couldn't add on Forger due to power limitations or what have you. But this one being a fairly simple sculpt and me having done it already, I was able to do a lot of the details pretty early on my iPad. And what I'm doing here is I added in a floor just to make sure that all the legs are touching the floor at the same point. Then what I'm doing is adding in an Enderman. If you've seen in my previous videos, I sculpted an Enderman, and I just wanted to add him in so I could scale up the spider. So once I 3D print them, they're not the same size, but the spider's the proper size in relation to the Enderman. So if someone were to buy all of my Minecraft sculpts, they would all look like they're the proper size to each other, and you wouldn't have a massive spider or a tiny spider next to an Enderman, and they just wouldn't look proportional. And to get the right size for that, I actually just looked up a picture of an Enderman standing next to a spider in Minecraft and just used that as a reference to see how big I wanted to make the spider. And some of you might be wondering, why do I do so much texturing in Forger sometimes, but in other videos I'll do most of my texturing in Zbrush with the actual texture brushes. And it just comes down to what I'm feeling. When I was sculpting in Forger and I had the idea of adding the kind of dots or the rough surface on top of his head and his back, I just went ahead and did it. And when I get more into a sculpt, I'll just add more and more details. But now that I got it in Zbrush, it's much easier to use the actual texture brushes rather than going in manually and adding textures like I would have to do on my iPad. And also, once I get it to Zbrush, I have a lot of textures that I can cycle through to give me more inspiration. So I'll just go through my alpha brush library and just look at what I think I might want and bring those in, and I'll go back and forth a lot of times. I'll try it out, undo, try a new one, undo until I get something I want. But as far as texturing goes, I will do some of it in Forger, but I generally do most of it on Zbrush. And now I'm going in and I'm going to adjust the spider's position, like adjusting the butt to the right there, and I'm going to be moving some of the legs up and down to make it look like more of a dynamic pose, like the spider might be in motion. I could leave him symmetrical, which I do for sculpting purposes, because if he's symmetrical, I can sculpt one side and it'll affect the other side, so it's basically twice as fast. But once I get to a point where I'm done sculpting and I want to print it or have a finished model, I like moving him again for more dynamic poses. And even this one, it's not the most dynamic pose ever, but it makes it look like he's more in motion, he's more moving, like it's more realistic, more professional. And once I get him posed how I want, I throw in the Enderman again just to check the size, and I'm happy with that and the sculpt and everything, so I'm going to go ahead and start painting. Not that if I'm unhappy with some of the details I can't go back and sculpt it, but I prefer to have everything finished sculpted before I go into painting. It's just an easier process for me that way. And I've been really enjoying the painting process. I feel like it kind of brings the whole sculpt together, specifically for these last few Minecraft videos I've been doing. And in this one specifically, because again, I don't know if someone looks at this, they're probably not going to think Minecraft spider, but hopefully having it painted black with the red eyes, hopefully it'll be a little more obvious what it is. And I'll throw up some images of side-by-sides in the end so you guys can see, but hopefully having painted it, it'll be more obvious. And one thing I do, and you might have noticed this when I did the Ender Dragon as well, is I don't have him fully jet black. I'll actually choose black on my color palette, but if you look in the bottom left, it'll say polyskin, and that's the kind of like the texture that I'm using. So it'll affect all the colors differently. So even though I'm using a black, because I'm using that polyskin, it's not a jet black, you know. It kind of lightens it up a little bit, and I just feel like that makes it look a little bit more realistic on top of a realistic sculpt. And once I get him done painting, I'm pretty much done with this whole sculpt. What I'm doing now is actually just going in and adjusting the light so I could export some pictures for social media or for video thumbnails or for my Etsy. But other than that, all I have to do is splice him up for printing, and he's pretty much done. So now I'm just going to cycle through a few photos so you can see the finished product. But that's it. That's the final sculpt. Follow me on Instagram and check out my Etsy. They're both at Zane Customs. Like and subscribe if you liked the video. Thanks for watching.